Oh, there goes my fingerprints. Are you kidding me?
Your Honor, we found out about it that day. It's improper.
There are no speaking objections. There are no speaking objections. I told you that. You will have an opportunity in your rebuttal argument.
Objection, improper argument.
Overruled.
It scrapes the top of one knuckle, does a bit of a dive to the second knuckle, does a real deep dive to that third knuckle, and then scoots along. And that would be one heck of a magic bullet to do that.
That's incredible.
Either he doesn't know California law or doesn't care.
Closing arguments have begun in the A$AP Rocky assault trial. State and defense remind jurors about key evidence presented and not presented. Probably a really long video today, but a lot happened. Defense wasn't even able to finish, so I guess they're finishing tomorrow. Hit subscribe, join channel membership. I put up a bonus video recently. All right, before closing arguments, I want to read you a few tweets to help you understand the law and how the jury is instructed here. If the jury finds that it was a firearm, but is not sure it is a semi-automatic firearm, if instructed, the jury can convict on assault with a firearm, which could be a felony or a misdemeanor. Misdemeanor is only 6 to 12 months. The judge could also instruct the jury on assault with a deadly weapon, not a firearm, which could be a felony or misdemeanor, 1 year or less. If jury finds that it was a prop gun but don't want to acquit him outrightly, it could settle on that, which could be 1 year or less, 6 to 12 months or whatever. Now, Megan tweeted, A$AP Rocky's prop gun defense is focused in part on the fact that police found no shell casings at the shooting. Before Willie says he went back and found 2. On Monday, defense admitted that the prop gun they say Rocky fired ejected spent shell casings. So she's saying the defense switched up their defense a little bit, saying it did eject spent shell casings. The biggest hurdle will be getting all the jurors to believe it was a real gun. Maybe the other way around, showing it was a prop gun. Since no prop gun casings were found at the scene, it means no police search scene but didn't find prop gun casings, which should have been there. Relly could have came back to the scene afterwards, planted real gun casings, and took prop gun casings. Now this is in response to Megan's tweet here. It doesn't seem terrible, it is terrible, but it was unavoidable based on Lou's testimony. He testified he has never seen this prop gun fired. Yet on cross by Lewin, he said it would eject casings when fired, without objection from Takapina about such speculation. So that's why Lou's testimony kind of screwed up their defense a little bit. But do you think the state proved it was a real gun? There was no evidence of a shooting. The only evidence of a shooting that was ever really given to the police was the shell casings provided by the victim. No bullet markings on the road, no bullets and cars nearby, nothing. No gunshot wound, just a scraped knuckle.
But whatever my ruling is, there will be no approaching the bench, there will be no discussion, there will be no debating, and there will be no arguing.
All right, state starting closing arguments here.
Started by telling you that this case was really an easy case, not a complicated case, a very simple case. And as I stand up here before you now, I want to reiterate, this is not a difficult case. The question for you to answer in this case boils down to really just one question. There's only one important question in this case, one critical question that you have to answer. And that is, did Mr. Mayers, the man at the table, did he use a real gun or did he use a fake gun? Was the gun that Mr. Mayers turned around and pointed at Mr. Efron and fired twice at that corner of Selma and Vista Del Mar, was it a real gun or a fake gun?
Is there much evidence of it being a real gun? The injury is important because it's not a normal bullet wound. If he had a bullet wound, it'd be like, oh shit, it's a scraping of a knuckle. And there was no evidence of a shooting found by any of the police officers. And the gun was never recovered.
But still, he made the decision to bring a loaded, concealed gun with him to that confrontation. Those were his decisions. Those decisions had consequences. And you know the results of those decisions. And that is what we are asking you to hold him accountable for in this case. Is, are you going to listen to 12E, the man who relies on the defendant for his livelihood, for his income, really for his entire career? Are you going to rely on him, or are you going to rely on your own lying eyes? Because what he described on the video did not happen. What did the video show? Well, it showed the defendant confronting Mr. Efron. It showed the defendant executing his plan to immediately get in Mr. Efron's face, immediately engage in a physical confrontation. It shows Mr. Efron did not have a weapon. Mr. Efron went there to talk. He went there to argue. He went there that night to resolve his differences, okay? Repeatedly. He repeatedly puts that fact in front of you. He wants you to focus on Mr. Efron's size, how big he is, how muscular he is. How honestly it sounded like this was the first time that 12E had seen Mr. Efron outside of the gym. He constantly repeated how much Mr. Efron was in the gym.
He mentioned it like 3 or 4 times because he's describing an incident where it was a physical altercation and being asked about the incident. And Rocky is probably like 40 or 50 pounds smaller than him. It's a physical altercation and a witness is describing what they saw.
So when he reaches out with his left hand, what does that leave free? His right hand, his dominant hand. That muscular right hook. Does he throw a punch at the defendant? No. He reaches out with his hand and the defendant immediately gets in his face. He's actually propelled backwards. Why doesn't he punch the defendant? Why doesn't he fight? He's there to fight, right? That's what 12 wants you to believe. He's there to fight the defendant. Why doesn't he? Well, he told you. He knows. If I fight this man, it's all over. Not just his relationship with the defendant. He knows they're not going to recover from that. If I punch him in the face, we're done. our friendship is over.
If you're new to the channel, please hit subscribe. I appreciate the support. Back to the video, boys.
I am not going to hold back, okay? When I talk about the defense witnesses, I want to be very clear. What they got on the stand and told you were lies. They repeatedly lied when asked about a whole variety of topics we'll get into.
Obviously going to tell the jury that defense witnesses lied. What do you think Takapian is going to say about Relly's testimony? There's a lot of holes in Relly's testimony too.
So we get to the next location, the parking lot.
After Relly followed him, probably for like a quarter mile around a corner and everything.
But this is where the defense is going to double down on the idea that you cannot believe what you see with your own eyes. Because when you watch the video, you can see space between Hills, you can see space between Mr. Efron. Because you saw it for your own eyes in court. If you didn't see it, you heard it. When 12B's asked the question, what is AUG? That's kind of a mundane, really seemingly insignificant question. What does the defendant do? He screams out, don't answer that.
Because it's like a running joke of AUG. No one knows what AUG is. It's been a thing for years. Look at this. Creative agency. And look at their website. AUG. You press start. Rules. Never reveal what AUG means. Number 2. When in doubt, always refer to number 1. Was Rocky wrong for that? Probably shouldn't have said shit because this is a serious trial, but it was more so a joke, I believe. Creative agency, bro. He's making it out like Rocky was coaching a witness and telling him. Prosecutor points out that it's not even an important question, then is trying to damage Rocky's whole reputation with pointing it out.
Literally coaching him in court in front of him. And what's 12B's response? My brother's company? Man, I don't know. I can't say.
Oh no, he didn't name the company. Oh no.
So do you expect him to come into court and tell you the truth about exactly what happened on that street corner?
Does it ruin 12B's testimony? I don't think so. It's a dumb question about a creative agency.
The video clearly shows before Mr. Efron is anywhere near Hills, the defendant is already pulling the gun out, turning around, putting his arm forward. When exactly in that sequence he fired? Hard to say. The sound doesn't necessarily match up perfectly with the audio. These are from two different systems. The sound is farther away than the video, but they're close enough that you can tell that in those seconds, the defendant starts firing. How does Mr. Efron react? He reacts by grabbing Hills and using him as a human shield. Would be a natural response when you're faced with someone firing a gun at you. How does the defense try to twist that though and reframe it? They try to tell you that's actually, Mr. Efron attacking Hills because it's a tough case for them. Because it's all on video, you get to see it for yourself. So that takes me to the next, really most absurd part of the defense in this case, which is that not only was this a prop gun, but Mr. Efron knew it was a prop gun. But at the same time, they also want you to believe, need you to believe, that he pulled the gun in order to intimidate Mr. Efron with the gun that Mr. Efron already knows is a prop gun. It is absolutely absurd. Not only was he stabbed in this nightclub, 12B was stabbed at the same time. That's a violent thing to have happen to you. Not only that, but he has crazy people breaking into his house. Crazy people stalking him, also breaking into his house. And when he's faced with that real violence, being stabbed with a real knife, having real people in his house that he doesn't know, what is his rational response to that? Let's carry a fake gun.
He's trying to point out prop gun is kind of pointless for home defense, but rappers are around prop guns. Like, I've seen prop guns before because on my channel, I've vlogged with rappers for years. I've been at music videos where there's prop guns everywhere, like straight up, like there's fake guns. It's literally like a movie set. So it is a possibility, but it's hard to believe, but they just haven't been at movie sets or music video sets.
So that the next time someone approaches him with a real knife, he can pull out his fake gun. That's gonna go one of two ways. That assailant might say, I didn't know you had a gun, and leave. Or they might attack you with their real knife or their real gun, and your fake gun is completely useless. That is not just illogical, it's absurd, okay? It's because it's not real advice. That advice was not given to the defendant, okay? Lou made that up for this case, for his testimony in this trial. It did not happen. It's even more absurd because they're saying that Mr. Efron knew. He knew that that gun was fake when the defendant pulled it on him. So any even remote possible deterrent effect that that fake gun would have on anyone goes completely out the window when we're talking about Mr. Efron. Because Mr. Efron knows it's fake. They told you he got that prop gun at a music video shoot in July 2021. We know the shooting happens November of 2021. Between July and November, did they show you a single instance where the defendant and Mr. Efron are together? A single instance where Mr. Efron could have received that information that this was a fake gun? Does it even make sense that if the defendant's going to carry a fake gun for his security, that he's going to tell everyone around him, hey, it's a fake gun, it's a fake gun? How does that make any sense? It makes absolutely no sense because it's not true. Is he focused on Mr. Efron, the provocateur, the one who's provoking this fight, who's trying to hurt his friend Rocky? No. He's got his back to Mr. Efron. He's focused completely on the defendant. Again, they want you to believe Mr. Efron looked at the defendant and said, put that fake-ass gun away. He never said that. What's he doing on the video? He's backing up.
I mean, I know the defense already, I think, had admitted to certain people being certain people in video, but look at this. This is literally blobs, bro. So that's some high-quality video footage right here.
And the gun comes out before Mr. Efron is anywhere near Hills. that completely negates their defense. Negates the reason why he says he had to pull the gun in the first place, to protect Ills. Negates 12B's testimony that Mr. Efron was punching Ills. Creates a lot of problems for them. You can see the space for yourself.
So he's pointing that out because obviously part of defense was that Relly was attacking Ills and Rocky was protecting Ills from imminent danger.
Mr. Efron was going to attack Ills. I don't, for that to be true, there'd have to be a time machine involved. But
a time machine involved, okay.
doesn't matter how imminent it was. Doesn't matter if Mr. Efron was actually saying, I'm going to beat Ills up. I'm coming after you, Ills. Doesn't work. Belief in future harm is not sufficient. If nothing comes out of the barrel, the tip of that gun, because it's a prop gun, not a real gun, there's no need to shoot Mr. Efron. There's no need for him to move, period. The gun would make the sound. They're telling you that's what the deterrent is. So why does he move? He moves because it's a real gun. Because things do come out at the end of that. And he's trying to get a line of sight on Mr. Efron. Consider it from Mr. Efron's perspective. They want you to believe at the first scene, Mr. Efron looked coolly at the defendant when he pulled that gun out and said, put that fake ass gun away. So when he pulls it out a second time, a few minutes later, does Mr. Efron look back at him and say, do I have to tell you again? Put that fake ass gun away again. No, clearly that's not what he's doing. What he's doing is reacting to, oh my God, someone just pulled a real gun off. If what 12B was describing to you had actually happened, these savage blows landed on Ills' face, if that had actually happened, they would have brought in photos of Ills' bloody, bruised face, black eyes, busted lip, whatever it was, cut on his cheek. They didn't bring in any of that because it didn't happen.
Lewin's looking over now at the jury.
You'll be able to read the jury instructions for yourself, but there's a whole host of things that we do not have to prove in this case. The law tells you we do not have to prove. That the defendant even touched Mr. Efron. Mr. Efron doesn't have to be injured in any way. The defendant does not even have to fire his gun for this crime to be completed. He doesn't even have to point it directly at Mr. Efron. The moment the defendant pulled that gun out, armed himself, and was capable of inflicting injury on Mr. Efron, that crime was completed at that moment.
So just pulling the gun out.
He's going to point out every single minor inconsistency that Mr. Efron has ever made when he has given statements. He's going to bring up points in time that Mr. Efron is talking about things that have absolutely nothing to do with this case. Mr. Efron wants to be paid because he was the victim of a real crime by a real gun. And some of the most important evidence that you heard in this case actually came from those recordings.
Minor inconsistencies. He just said that. Relly's minor inconsistencies lying under oath, potentially putting someone in prison for 8 to 12 years. Downplaying Relly lying right there. That's hilarious.
He has no idea that this person is betraying him, recording him, and then immediately turning their conversations over to the defendant. These are his unfiltered, unprepared thoughts. He's not talking to the police. He does not even know he's being recorded.
The Wally phone calls can backfire a little bit because of what he just said right there. It's unfiltered. Relly doesn't know he's being recorded, and he's talking about Rocky shooting at him. But at the same time, Relly said those were AI or fake. More Relly lies, but he blamed at me 4 or 5 times, so that means he shot at him 4 or 5 times. I don't know how Relly had 4 or 5 times when it's only 2 times. It's a big difference, but not knowing he's being recorded saying Rocky shot at him. Or he's just sticking with the lie. Because at this point, he could already be like, I could say he shot at me. Take this to court, take it to a lawsuit type shit, so.
He called me out my living space. Called me, told me stop ducking him. He played that. That's called premeditated, bro. You feel what I'm saying? He didn't give me a chance. He told me I'm coming to a gun down.
See, this is why defense probably shouldn't have called Wally. Because they nitpick certain parts of the call that could make it seem like he's lying. But still, I think there's reasonable doubt here.
To see what the fuck this status was about. He pulls out. He tries to test bomb me. He tries to test bomb me and then pull out a gun for self-defense. He's a pussy boy. And then Ills is standing in between while he's trying to shoot me. He didn't give me no seconds for it to happen like that. And I got it all on camera. You don't want that, like, trust me. He's stupid. He did it all on camera, champ.
Rocky really fired a fake gun at him. You know, right? We all know Rocky carries that fake gun. That's pretty new. I was never in any real danger. None of that comes out of Mr. Efron. He's unequivocal. He tried to kill me. That's the entire case. Mr. Efron told the police what happened. He was consistent about the details of the shooting. Since the very beginning of this case, he's been consistent. He was consistent when he knew he was being recorded. He certainly knew the police were going to write reports. He probably had some idea that the police were video or audio recording him. More importantly, he was consistent even when he didn't know he was being recorded. When he thought he was in a safe space.
He wasn't consistent about going back to the scene, though. Because remember, there's someone on camera at 11:09, I think. He says it was him at first, but they have different clothes on. But then the pictures on his phone of the bullets on the ground are 11:45 p.m. There's a 30-minute gap, and they have no footage of him ever being there. Or his girlfriend, who he says was with him. Also, let's point out that Relly lied about being in LA at a gun range, when this is an LA gun range 2 weeks before the shooting.
He had to tell you that to modify the gun, by adding that belt clip, by putting that magazine extender on, so that he could explain why that gun had those small things that Twelby could just so conveniently come in here and tell you that in the heat of the moment, when it's quickly pulled, he saw those two same features, that tiny piece of metal on the side that would hold it to your belt, and the magazine extender. So that their stories match, their stories line up. If you accept that the defendant had a fake gun that Lou just described, you would also have to explain why there are no fired fake prop cartridges at the crime scene. Because the gun that Lou described, this prop gun that existed, that's a semi-automatic prop gun, would operate just like a real semi-automatic pistol. And it would shoot those cartridge cases out the side just like a real gun would. So why are there no prop cartridge cases found at the scene? They were told by Mr. Efron an approximation of when he turned. He didn't have an exact time. He gave them an approximation. They went, they collected the video, they saw someone returning, and they thought, okay, that must be him, and they collected it. That error that they made back in November of 2021 has certainly been flushed out in the years since this has happened. And what you know from the timestamp on Mr. Efron's photographs of those cartridge cases is that he actually came back closer to 11:45. The video stops at 11:20, so obviously we don't have video of him actually coming back.
Big blunder. I mean, the defense can fuck that whole, add reasonable doubt that he's planting evidence. We have no security footage of him ever going back and getting these shell casings.
It's also clear the person who comes back is wearing different clothing than what Mr. Efron was wearing at the time. And you also heard Mr. Efron testify at the preliminary hearing. When he was first shown that video, he looked at it and said, that's not me. So all that together, you know the person that you see on that video was not Mr. Efron. So Mr. Efron, the mastermind that you saw testify here, hatched this elaborate plan. And weeks before this crime, he went to a gun range. He got a 9mm Glock 43 and fired it multiple times. By some miracle of a coincidence, Mr. Efron must have known that ASAP Lou accidentally bought a magazine for a Glock 43. Somehow, Mr. Efron learned that. He's also going to intuit or know ASAP Lou's going to load that magazine, fully loaded, and he's going to leave it at the defendant's bedroom closet. Now, if you're already thinking this sounds completely unreasonable, I'm with you. It makes absolutely no sense. And knew to go get that specific kind of gun to fire at a firing range to collect those cartridge cases that he could plant in the future when this shooting happened. There's no way that this scenario would work without Mr. Efron knowing in advance that the shooting is going to happen and that he's going to need cartridge cases to plant at the scene. Under the defense scenario, too, he would not have time to get those cartridge cases any other way. He has a limited amount of time at 10 p.m., just after 10 p.m. on a Saturday, to leave the scene where the shooting happens, go find a gun, fire it off 2 times. The gun he's going to find also is going to be a Glock 43, so not any gun, but that specific gun. And he's going to fire it off multiple times, and then he's going to go back to the scene, I guess, by 11:10, when that person in the white shirt, so he changed his clothes, he's going to go back and he's going to plant those cartridge cases at the scene. Here's another way that Mr. Efron would have had to have used his telepathic powers, because he's going to know, or he would have to know, that after he tells the police, I only got 2, but there were 3 to 4 shots that were fired, he's going to know the police are going to later go collect a video that has audio, and that audio is going to definitively show you that in fact there were only 2 shots that were fired. The defendant would immediately understand that that prop gun that he used, right, that real prop gun that he has, that is not only his get out of jail free card, that is his make Mr. Efron's fake lawsuit go away later. So he needs to keep close tabs on that fake gun, right? So your reasonable expectation was, Mr. Efron texts the defendant, you tried to kill me with your real gun. The defendant's response would be, I gotta keep that gun. Now, what is the actual response you received through Lou? ASAP Lou comes in here and tells you that the defendant came up to him with the prop gun and said, get rid of this, I don't want it anymore. Is that reasonable? This is kind of where my job gets hard, because I have to explain to you how their version of how the prop gun disappeared doesn't make sense. That none of this actually ever happened, because this is all a made-up story. I'm sure what happened was Lou took that Glock 43, the real one that was used, with the modified slide, and got rid of it.
Assuming facts not evidence, where's the objection from Takapina? What the fuck? Like, that was complete horseshit.
But the defendant knew he had to get rid of that real gun. He can't have that, because that's going to definitively tie him back to this crime scene. So either he or Lou, his right-hand man, get rid of it. And
this is assuming facts not evidence. Why isn't he objecting?
Get rid of it. Why would the defendant get rid of the one thing, the most important thing that could definitively prove his innocence?
Okay, this is like burden shifting. The burden of proof is on this fucker right here. Rocky don't gotta prove shit. Rocky just has to establish a reasonable doubt. I feel like I've heard a few burden shifting examples, but whatever.
What efforts did Lou make to get that gun back? Because he needs it back now. Oh my God, I can't believe we got rid of it in the first place, but now we definitely need it back. But what does he do? He makes one phone call, and he's basically told, I don't really know where it is. And so he decides, just let it go. It's certainly not reasonable. We're bordering on insulting to your intelligence.
Insulting to the intelligence. Now he's trying to get the jury emotional. And the defense thinks we're stupid.
And you would want to hear from the co-director that has it now, right? But wouldn't you also want even a single piece of paper that proves to you that that gun ever existed?
Burden shifting, proving that a gun existed. They don't have to do that. It's just reasonable doubt.
There's literally been no documentation provided to you that that gun ever exists. No purchases, no receipts, no paperwork, anywhere.
DA is shitting on the defense for not producing a prop gun, but defense doesn't have burden of proof. The DA has burden of proof and hasn't presented the real gun. Isn't that ironic?
When the police search his house, did they find literally anything that supports the idea that a prop gun was there? Did they find any other prop guns? No. Do they find prop ammunition? No. But back to Lou, the other thing that you need to know about Lou is he's also apparently very clumsy. He's not detail oriented. And when Lou goes to the gun store one day, he just so happens to purchase an extra magazine, and wouldn't you know it, golly. Even though he owns the Glock 42, he just so happens to grab the wrong magazine. And he accidentally buys a Glock 43 magazine. Now remember, totally wrong magazine, will not fit in any of his guns, totally different caliber, totally useless to it. And around the same time, Lou and Rocky decide they're gonna go to a shooting range together. And Lou comes over to Rocky's house, and he brings his guns and his new, single, useless magazine he's just bought for the completely wrong gun. And only then does Lou realize his mistake. While he's in Rocky's house, of course. Even worse, Lou calls around, trying to find a gun range that they can go to, but he can't find one. It's gonna look like he's advancing towards Relly, when in reality, as 12 people tell you, it's just that he didn't have anywhere to go. I mean, apparently except for the exact same direction that he came in when he walked into the frame of the video. But Relly's not gonna be successful in his plan just yet.
Wrap it up, man. This fucker's been up there for 2.5, 3 hours, dude.
The defendant fires off 2 rounds, or loud, set-off car alarms. 12 retreats behind a wall. That's fully consistent with a real firearm, completely inconsistent with a fake gun. The defendant gets rid of the gun. That's undisputed. That's completely inconsistent with that gun being fake. The defendant still has that Glock 43 magazine in his bedroom closet, on top of ammunition for the other real guns that he owns. Again, that magazine, consistent with the type of firearm that fired those 2 cartridge cases that are found at the scene. Those real cartridge cases, that real ammunition. That gun, the Glock 43, only fires 9mm. None of the other guns in the defendant's house. There's literally no evidence of a prop gun. No evidence that it ever existed.
Burden shifting some more to end it.
Actual prop gun has never been produced. Definitely not to you. There's no prop ammunition found in his house. The rationale, this whole security thing, for carrying a prop gun, defies common sense, defies logic, totally unreasonable. The rationale for pulling that prop gun on a man who knows it's a prop gun. There's no prop ammunition found at the scene. There's literally not one piece of paper, not one shred of documentation. And again, all the actions of the people that you see on that video, completely consistent with a real gun being fired, completely inconsistent with this being a prop gun. So left with that, clear evidence that the defendant used a real gun, and a complete lack of evidence that he used a prop gun. Your job, as I started in my opening statement, as I started here, is simple. The evidence compels you to your decision, and it compels you to find him guilty. That is the only just verdict in this case. Thank you.
All right, there's the first part of the state's Takapina is going to come up and want blood here, boys.
That their only witness in this case committed perjury again and again and again and again in this court. That wasn't mentioned once, not even dealt with. Detective Flores, they're testified, we'll put up this testimony in a bit, that without really the 2 videos and the sounds, there's no evidence of a shooting. Could be, could not be. That's certainly not proof beyond reasonable doubt.
Great point.
He understands that the case rises and falls with him, and he spent a lot of time anticipating what I'm going to say about it.
I said this in a previous day. This case lives and dies with Relly's testimony.
What I'm going to do, but I promise you I won't, is I'm not going to go through every inconsistency of Mr. Efron. We'll be here until Christmas. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go through the major lies he told, the admissions of perjury, the important facts that he told you that turned out to be lies. Mr. Prislomo said there's no evidence of a profit in this case. There's definitely a lot less evidence of a real gun in this case than a profit. Was that this case was about Relly's jealousy, lies, and greed. I said that you'd see the kind of person he was in this courtroom, an angry pathological liar. That he, and he alone, is the source of all the evidence that they are relying on. And this case would rise and fall on his credibility. You take him out of the picture, there's no case. And as I promised, Relly showed you who he truly was when it came time for cross-examination. He's the man who told you without hesitation, I can tell people whatever I want. He said that. 4 different answers to one question. 4 answers, 1 question. He said, yes, no, I don't recall, I don't know, in 1 question. That was a first for me.
4 answers for 1 question. Remember, he's just going to keep pointing out all the reasonable doubt. That's all he's going to do throughout all this. Inconsistencies in statements.
The prosecution, just his testimony, I'm talking about this physical evidence, he said, apart from his testimony, the prosecution's evidence consists of videos, shell casings, and knuckle scrapes. And I don't know what else to call them but knuckle scrapes. I know they said, oh, he's going to call them knuckle scrapes. What am I going to call them? Bullet wounds? I mean, they're knuckle scrapes.
Really, what else is there to call them? They are knuckle scrapes, it looks like.
The DA said you only have to decide if it's proper or not. That's it. That's all you have to decide, personally. Nothing else is in dispute. That is not true. That's not true. And the judge just told you this. It completely ignores the self-defense and defense of others. They see what they want to see. They say what they want to say. They hide from you what they don't want you to see. Which is why they cut off the end of the video on Beast Del Mar. I'm going to show you what they cut off. They cut off after Rocky's gone. After 12 is already running away, they cut off the part where Pelly goes back and gets Ills one more time. Beyond a reasonable doubt that Rocky possessed a real operable semi-automatic firearm and that Rocky did not act in self-defense or defense of another. The evidence just isn't there. It's not even close. What a reasonable doubt isn't, the judge said this to you in the beginning, like, again, 4 weeks ago, whenever that was. What a reasonable doubt isn't, it isn't he may have committed the crime. It isn't he probably committed the crime. It isn't I'm almost certain he committed the crime. That doesn't carry it.
Lewin's getting annoyed in the bottom right. It's very frustrating he's allowed to act like an unhinged maniac. I'm sure he's going to object a lot.
What was proven beyond reasonable doubt in this case? Terrell Efron is a compulsive liar and perjurer. That was proven beyond reasonable doubt. Folks, he even bragged to you about committing perjury. He literally did. And you're going to see it. As long as Mark is close by, the video works, you're going to see him literally bragging about committing perjury. Yet, as we walk through the evidence together, you'll see all the possibilities they presented. Starting with that first witness out of the gate. Right at the jury selection, boom! First witness, Zizzo, right out of the gate. Is it possible you missed the shell casings? You never say anything about the word possible. You won't be asked what's possible in this case. First witness out of the box, Officer Zizzo, was asked, is it possible you missed the shell casings?
Great point. I mean, possible. The word possible isn't proving something beyond reasonable doubt.
Possible is not proof beyond reasonable doubt.
Okay, that was crazy.
It's not about justice. It was tabletop winning. Plain and simple.
Yeah,
It shouldn't.
that's improper.
And they play games in this case that should offend you. I'm not just saying it. I'm going to take you through embracing perjury of this relic, trying to deceive you. They've had a heavy, heavy burden of disproving self-defense or defense of another beyond a reasonable doubt. And that's a burden that they cannot carry in this case, not even close. Relly threatened Rocky, Relly threatened Schwelby, Relly repeatedly punched Ills and ragdolled Ills. And we'll show you that again on the video, slowly. You had it narrated to you, but you can see it on video. Mr. Levin also told you that the prop gun didn't serve its intended purpose on November 6th, obviously, 2021. Rocky gave it back to him, and he gave it back to this co-director from the DMV video when he went to New York next. He remember it was December, January, or whatever. They spoke to Haji. They recorded it, they told him. And you know, if Haji said anything inconsistent with what Lou said, you're going to hear that thing.
Your Honor, we found out about it that day. It's improper.
There are no speaking objections. There are no speaking objections. I told you that. You will have an opportunity in your rebuttal argument.
Objection, improper argument.
Overruled.
Holy shit. Why does Lewin think getting in arguments in front of the jury like this with the judge is going to benefit them at all?
They didn't know 5 months later the police would come. They weren't thinking, oh, we better say this in case, I don't know, next year at some point I get arrested. That was the furthest thing from Rocky's mind. They did know that it did not serve its intended purpose. They did know that. So that was the end of that. Rocky got rid of that prop gun that didn't work and instead beefed up his security. So now he had to have security all the time instead of just going to events, even when he was his friends on the street. And really, who couldn't answer any question straight, admitted to lying, and when he didn't admit to lying, got impeached with prior inconsistent statements. I'm not going to go through them all. You know, when you know the truth and when you tell the truth, you don't have to rehearse the truth. You don't have to get your memory refreshed. You don't have to be reminded of the truth when you know the truth and tell the truth. You don't have to be coached on the truth by the prosecutors. You don't have to have someone telling you how to answer questions, like Relly was told in this case. You always get the truth right. All witnesses answered every question without incident, without problem. They were consistent. They didn't get tripped up once. There was not one inconsistency. So the response to that is, oh, they were coached very well. You're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't, I guess. Because if they had been caught up and tripped up and been inconsistent, and their truth was inconsistent, well then they're liars. Or they weren't consistent. But because they were so consistent and they didn't get impeached, they couldn't lay blow on them.
That's good shit right there.
And that Rocky's friends knew he had friends. They didn't announce it to the world. Of course, that would be stupid to say, put a social media post out, carry a prop gun, in case you want to attack me, it's really only prop gun. No, Lou said, and Troy said, what is the immediate group of friends? Was this something, when he was asked, because he was asked on direct about when did he first find out about the prop gun defense? And he said, there were no deposition criminal cases with the question before. Then I said, all right, so basically, what you were being asked when we're talking about that, he just found out about this prop gun. What you're being asked are questions related to discovery disclosure in a criminal case, correct? And he said, yes. So Detective Flores, who's very honest, and I think tried to do a good job here, told you what that was about. See, if you just listen to the director in this case, it would make it sound like only 2 weeks ago, oh, there was a prop gun. Since day one, discovery in a criminal case is what he was being asked about.
So he's pointing out that prop gun has always been their defense.
They had 4 opening statements that we got a ballistics report from them that was done over a year before. The day before opening statement, you guys were empowered, crying and screaming. A year after they did it, Detective Flores said, we got it after you guys were empowered. Detective Zizzo, Sergeant Zizzo, now former police officer Zizzo, said on the witness stand, we may have missed it. We didn't search the whole street. I said, really? Looking at his report like, when did you say that for the first time? He said, today, this morning, we told him that for the first time. He was consistent, he was credible, unlike Relly, who actually contradicted his own recorded statements, and unlike Relly, who actually contradicted his prior sworn testimony over and over again. He committed perjury, he bragged about committing perjury. The fact that the prosecution tried to make you believe that his summary was Twelby's actual statement when it wasn't.
I pointed that out in my video. It was a summary of his statement, not his actual statement.
Here's another one. The prosecution asked Twelby, how he knew it was a prop gun if he never spoke to Rocky about it. That was completely misstating what Twelby said on direct testimony. Completely. Twelby didn't say he never spoke to Rocky about it. He said the opposite. He said they did speak about it prior to November 6, 2021, in September of 2021 in Harlem at that Governor's Ball thing, and after he first saw it at the DMV video. He said they spoke about it.
Pointing out a misstatement by the prosecution there. A fat girl right here. She's about 15 pounds.
Before 2 weeks ago, neither he nor any member of law enforcement ever tried to reach out to 12. 2025. This event happened in 2021. Before 2 weeks ago, before January of 2025, neither he, the lead detective in this case, or any member of law enforcement tried to reach out to 12. They knew who he was, obviously. But that still didn't prevent Mr. Lewin from asking 12 if before those last 2 weeks, didn't you get a message from us? Didn't you get a message from us? No, Mr. Lewin, you didn't get a message from me. Here's another one. Prosecution asked 12 about photos taken in Rocky's bedroom, which showed Rocky's registered firearms and not a prop gun there. Those photos were taken during a search of Rocky's residence in April of 2022, 5 months after the incident on Vista Del Mar in November of 2021. 5 months later. So the fact that there was a prop gun there means absolutely nothing. You heard there had to be a prop gun way before that. And why was there no prop gun in the house? You heard why Rocky, for that 5-6 month period, carried a prop gun on advice of security. And he said this thing, and I personally think he's one of the nicest guys I've ever seen. He said this thing where he's like, you feel me? You feel me? That was just a matter of speaking. But Mr. Lewin had to take that. Say, no, I don't feel it. I don't know what you mean. I feel it. I can't feel it.
I mean, Lewin was being a fucking dick there.
Lou said he makes a portion of his salary for Rocky, and he does. And he loves Rocky. They both love Rocky. So they were so concerned about his both of their financial motives. Not once did the prosecution take issue with the fact that their own witness, Relly, was here because of his financial motivation, and only his financial motivation. A $30 million financial motivation. But they're asking Lou Levin, don't you get 20% of your salary from him? Or that poor IT guy who had to fly from Paris did. You made $20,000 last year from him, huh? I mean, their guy's looking $30 million.
It's a good comparison, I guess. Rocky's friends are making like small percentage of their salaries off of him, but Relly's motivation is a $30 million lawsuit, which I think will be a dumpster fire.
He continues to follow the guy who pulls the real gun and according to him, threat to kill him. Think about that for a second. When you talk about a reasonable doubt or a doubt based on reason. Think about that. That was so odd. I mean, he said, yeah, the guy pulled out a gun on me. I thought it was a real gun, and he threatened to kill me. So after he walked away, I decided to follow him. I don't follow him, berating him as I'm following him. Almost begging him to shoot me. The referee on December 2021, you asked him why he continued to follow Mr. Mayers if he knew he had a gun, right? He answered yes, that was the question. Because according to you, you told him that would seem to be an odd thing to do, right? Or odd thing to do, I'd say, right? And Detective Flores said yes. Of course it's an odd thing to do.
Oh, real quick, I saw someone ask me about Rocky shouting me out on Snapchat 7 or 8 years ago because he found one of my videos on him.
Shout out to the homie, whoever you are, love, bro.
In fact, the lack of evidence further shows that this was a prop. And you heard that the police found absolutely no evidence of a shooting at the scene whatsoever. Officer Zizzo told you that there was no sign of a shooting, there was no blood, no bullet holes, no shell casings, no physical evidence at all. No physical evidence of a shooting was recovered at all. No, sir. So that was the guy who was there within 15 minutes.
Hammering home there's no evidence of a real shooting at the scene.
But when you question his credibility, it's because his credibility is at issue. Because without him and his credible testimony, the prosecution has zero evidence of a shooting. They have zero evidence to prove that it was an operable gun, let alone shoot. Consider that. What's the prosecution's evidence that the object in Rocky's hand on November 6, 2021 was not a prop gun? What's their evidence? Relly's shell casings, Relly's knuckle scrapes, and the videos from parking garage at 1616 Vista Del Mar and 6200 Hollywood Boulevard. But remember what Detective Flores said about those videos. First, he said, there's no evidence from 1616 Vista Del Mar of an actual gun being discharged. I asked that question, and he said, correct. From that view by itself, no. Well, that's the only view we have of 1616 Vista Del Mar, that video. They're all there and so forth. Then, second, I said the only time you could see a gun in any video was the parking garage video. And in that one, you can't tell if it's operable, whether it's operable gun or real gun or not, right? Detective Flores? And he was honest. You first cited the fact the gun was displayed, right? Which you already told the jury that the gun that was displayed, the only time you could see a gun in any video was the parking garage video, correct? You already told the jury, by that video, you can't tell if it's operable, right? Correct. So if he can't tell it's operable, how are you supposed to do it? Detective Flores can't tell it's operable, how are you supposed to tell it's operable? You have to believe Relly's story.
These are great points. Can't really tell much from the videos at all that they have.
The sound I heard off the camera, a firearm, some kind of replica firearm. He also acknowledged that a replica firearm could also make that sound, a starter pistol. Because first, whether Relly was truthful about his injury goes to his credibility. Credibility, not about the elements of the law. It goes to his credibility, whether he's truthful about the nature of the injuries. And second, whether or not Relly was actually injured by a bullet is something important to consider in deciding whether Rocky had an operable firearm or a prop gun. Those are the two reasons. I disagree with you. You do have to consider whether he was hit by a bullet or not, because he said he was. At first, anyway. It was obviously a prop gun can't cause that injury. So was that a gunshot wound? Of course not. Of course that wasn't a gunshot wound. Even Relly couldn't tell you those scrapes were definitely from a bullet. At least I tried. Couldn't tell you. Look at his testimony when discussing whether he was grazed by a bullet. I guess whatever is left from the bullet, or the floor, or whatever. I don't know. I can't see. It's either what was left from the bullet, or the floor. Guess it could have been the floor. I don't know. I can't see. That's not what he said in his lawsuit. Lawsuit said he was shot. And he wants $30 million because he was shot. But regardless, there's no bullet in the world that could have done that. I mean, think about it. It scrapes the top of one knuckle, does a bit of a dive to the second knuckle, does a real deep dive to that third knuckle, and then scoots along. And that would be one heck of a magic bullet to do that.
That's incredible. Casting doubt on his knuckle scrapes. The shape of your fist doesn't really, you see what I'm talking about? It's not straight. Relly's wounds were right here on these knuckles, and obviously they're not straight.
Just looking at those knuckle scrapes, no one has to be an expert in anything. No, they are not from a bullet.
Bro said that had to be a magic bullet.
There's no one with eyes in the range. I think that's a bullet. That's a permanent injury. But only $30 million would take care of.
$30 million. We'll take care of it.
Told him during an interview that he needs to get treated because this type of case this is. Was that he needs to go to get medical treatment because of the type of case that this is. Correct? I believe that's correct. So a detective is telling him on November 9th, you need to go to a hospital to get treated because of the type of case that this is.
That's kind of crazy for a detective to say.
Normally he doesn't want to go to the hospital because they need medical attention. Not the manufacturer of getting a case. That is offensive. You saw, Officer Sizzo told you, 7 officers were searching the scene for any signs of a shooting with flashlights. Those big police searchlights. For how long? Detective Flores told you. About 20 minutes they were there for searching.
More reasonable doubt all these police officers were there. No evidence of a shooting was ever found. No shell casings.
7 officers times 20 minutes. That's 140 minutes of manpower right there. 7 officers for 20 minutes of trained police officers searching with flashlights for any signs of a shooting, including shell casings. They found nothing. Absolutely nothing. You heard the stipulation at the end. The stipulation needs to be agreed with the defense and the prosecution. At the end of the case, just before the judge's instructions the other day, there was zero evidence on this record. Zero. And if I didn't say show anything on this record whatsoever regarding what those blank cartridges look like or how they were ejected from the front. There was zero
That's
evidence.
the proper argument. It misstates the evidence in the case.
Oh, it does not?
I don't recall every word that has been stated by every witness during the entire trial, so I don't know if it misstates the evidence or not. If this is something that's important to you, then you can ask the court reporter to read back.
So what just happened there? Tacopina hammering him, 7 officers searched for 20 minutes, 140 total minutes, Relly found in 2 to 3 minutes. No evidence of what prop casings would have looked like, what it is made of, or how far it would go, if it would have remained intact after ejection. The stipulation that the prop gun ejected shell casings. So he's doing a good job here combating.
There's no evidence whatsoever regarding what blank cartridges look like or how they were ejected from a prop. No evidence of what they would look like, okay? There's no evidence regarding what material those blank cartridges would have been made of. You heard about paper and plastic from Lou Levin. Paper and plastic, or how far or in what direction they would have been ejected. There's no evidence of that at all from the prop gun. Or whether they would have still been intact or not from a prop gun. You heard no evidence of that. In other words, there's no evidence whether the blank cartridge from Rocky's prop gun would have been observable to the police as the shiny metallic shell casing from a real firearm. No evidence of that. And they had plenty of opportunity. They had a ballistics expert in here.
So that was a big issue because if you believe the prop gun theory, you have to believe that shell casings from the prop gun were on the street. He's covering his ass on that pretty much.
Blank cartridge shell casing look exactly like non-moving shell casings. They're steel. They could have done that. They didn't ask one question about that. They didn't ask Detective Flores one question about that. They asked our witness, Lou Levin, about it. Who's not an expert, but he knows nothing. No evidence of shooting whatsoever. No bullet holes, no blood, no damage to any one of those cars, which would have almost been impossible. No damage to any one of those cars in the parking lot right there. This bears emphasis. The police found no shell casings whatsoever in 140 minutes worth of combined searching with searchlights. But really, once you believe he found it by himself, with a cell phone flashlight in 2 to 3 minutes. The officers possibly looking in the wrong place. Possibly looking in the wrong place. They actually told you in their opening statement that the officers didn't know exactly where to look. They said that in their opening statement. They didn't know exactly where to look. But the one problem with that excuse is there's a video. There's a video and body cam footage that show the police in the location exactly where to look. Exactly where to look.
This is good, showing them police officers were literally standing where the altercation happened because the state tried to add some doubt on them not searching in the correct place. I mean, this is literally right where it happened, right here in this whole area. Look at this side by side.
There's that orange wall I keep saying. This is where it will happen, right here, and they're searching right there with these flashlights. Now there's this person who really first swore was him. He swore was him at 11:09, and then so it wasn't him, but it was him first. But some news coming back here at 11:09, right across. I wasn't even involved yet. That was all. This is the first moment he said, "Yes, that's me, 11:09 guy. That's me. Yes." And Mr. Sorry, you sure? I'm sure. Well, you know, weren't you in a black hoodie before? And that looks like a white hoodie. Yeah, I probably went and changed. So as long as how do you impeach his own witness, and you'll see what happens. Once again, they say possibly. It was possibly additional. So the solution to that not being him now, because he swore in the back that I made a mistake to you in my opening, by saying that was Relly. I made a mistake to you. Relly swore on the oath it was him to you, but I made a mistake in my opening. He swore to you on the oath it was him until he changed. Sir, Detective Flores talked about that. And he told you that the time of 11:11, when the person in the video enters, is consistent when Relly told the police he returned to the scene. Of course, there were multiple problems with that story. First, he said that his girlfriend, Lydia Parker, was with him at the time he supposedly searched the area and recovered those shell casings. You know the video doesn't show you that. Not that video.
So inconsistencies with Relly's statements going back to the scene to get the shell casings.
So despite that fact, they took the position for years that that guy who came back at 11:09 with Relly returned to the scene in that video. And despite the fact that Relly told you at the trial he was sure it was him, the prosecution then impeached their own witness again and say, no, that wasn't me.
Uh-oh, there's an issue. Lewin's not happy about something. This unhinged maniac's about to blow up here.
The defense has said as follows. We're trying to win at all costs. We only care about winning, not
Can I
justice.
sustain that objection?
No, you did not until the fourth time I asked it, Your Honor. I objected 4 times. Let me continue. We suborned perjury, stated 3 times. I objected each time. We could have called the worst of them all. We could have called Haji. The court knows we found out about him that morning. The court made a finding that their discovery violation was not inadvertent. That means it was intentional. That means it was not accidental. They got up here and just told this jury that they didn't hear from this witness Haji, that we could have called him. The court knows. We have a hearing about it. It's been very clear. The court found that they were not honest in what they provided. They were not honest about when they actually turned the information over. And now he's up here and able to argue that. And when I object, basically I'm told it's overruled. I'm a judge. The problem is the court made these findings. The court said you cannot disparage lawyers. Let's be clear. If anything that he had said was true, that we suborned perjury, that we don't care about justice, those are reportable issues to the state bar. The court knows it's not true. I know you know it's not true, Your Honor. I assume he knows it's not true. And then finally, there is no standard whatsoever where you can say that each one of these are, quote, reasonable doubts. That is not a correct standard. The standard is looking at all the evidence in total. Did the people prove the case beyond a reasonable doubt? It is improper to say, if this fact is wrong, that is, quote, a reasonable doubt. You can argue that that evidence is important enough, etc. So they're misstating.
No, wait a minute. I don't let it go. If I see or I think that Mr. Tacopina is disparaging you or you are disparaging him, I will put a stop to it.
Judge, I objected 4 times. You overruled all my objections. You finally sustained an objection. Your Honor, that's improper. It's misconduct.
I didn't hear that.
Your Honor, it's in the record. 3 different times he said we suborned perjury. I don't know what to tell you.
Hold on. Kathy, was that said?
Your Honor, we said,
All right. If it was said, then I should have stopped it. But I don't remember if it was said. You have made so far 9 objections. 6 were overruled, 3 were sustained.
The problem
So therefore, what? If that was said, then I'll bring it to the attention of the jury.
Your Honor,
That's an improper statement.
This is what I'm asking. He's not able to go after our witnesses all he wants. He can even misstate the evidence. What he cannot do is he cannot argue, A, why we put a witness out there. He cannot say that we suborn perjury. He cannot say that all we care about is winning. He cannot say that this is supposed to be the pursuit of justice and the prosecution doesn't care about that. He has said all of those things. He needs to stick to the evidence in the case. Either he doesn't know California law or doesn't care. And Your Honor, the court's already found, and the worst of them, and I want the court to instruct, he got out there and argued, why didn't you hear from Haji? The court knows, Your Honor, the court made a finding.
You're repeating yourself.
Well, will the court do something about it? Will the court instruct that that was improper argument?
Can I respond?
No. Failure to call logical witnesses. You're going to have a rebuttal argument. You can address it in your rebuttal argument as to why you didn't.
Oh God, Lewin and rebuttal is gonna be fucking insufferable.
He got up and said, that's not the statement of the witness. 1054.3 is very clear. What they gave us is supposed to be the statement of the witness. So when he's standing up saying, well, that's not his statement, that was his statement, that's what they had to turn over. So yeah, Your Honor, I can go back and I can go and argue in the court and say, well, it's just both sides arguing. But Your Honor, not inadvertent.
Don't argue with me. I don't think it means he lied. I just said it was not inadvertent. That's the extent of my finding. It was not inadvertent. I'm not going to debate with you whether they were or were not lying. I don't believe it was a lie. I want to give the court reporter a break, and we'll take a break until...
I'll give I have to just respond to a few things. But there's a record here. One thing, Paul Newton is a liar, which he invented me, by the way. So, I mean, if our witnesses are lying, and I put them up there, obviously, they're saying we came up with this Tottenham story. So they're saying, I object, and they say I'm supporting her. That's what they're saying, number one. Number two, I can't say that they want to win at all costs. That's not, I can't say that. I don't think that's an improper argument. If you say it is, I won't say it again. But the other thing, Your Honor, I didn't argue that that wasn't a statement. I said it's not a sworn statement of 12B, it's not a recorded statement. I said it's a summary. I'm accurately describing it. It is a summary. I'm just going through what I said. I mean, they disparaged our entire defense, mocked it. So I'm giving them a little bit back. I don't think I'm doing something.
I want to interrupt him. He didn't interrupt you.
And the thing that he said, though, first of all, I disagree. I think one fact of relevance would be a reasonable doubt. The jury finds he's incredible on one thing of importance, like the shell casings. That's a reasonable doubt. If they so choose, it's up to them to decide what a reasonable doubt is. That could cause them to find not guilty. That's up to them. But it certainly is an argument that can be made. They can say, no, it's not a reasonable doubt. But I can make that argument. I know.
Yeah, Lewin's trying to manipulate what is reasonable doubt and what isn't.
The one thing I never said was they could have called Haji. I wouldn't do that. I didn't say that. They could check the record. What I said was they spoke to him that morning. They had a recording of Haji. That was brought out to Lou11. I said, if Lou11 was inconsistent with Haji, we would have heard the tape. I didn't say they could have called Haji. If I can show you where I said that, I would never have said that. We could have called Haji. It wasn't going to come.
So I can't understand what he's saying because the audio is so fucking terrible, but apparently Lewin is misstating what Takapina said.
So far, Kathy has not found the word suborn. Embracing perjury, I don't even know what that means. But
So the court reporter couldn't find what Lewin was talking about, so he lied.
that's fair game. But I do not want either directly or indirectly any counsel accusing the other one of suborning perjury, encouraging perjury, touching on perjury. I don't want the word counsel and perjury.
No evidence whatsoever that he took the shell casing off the scene. While on that point, by the way, the photos taken with Relly's iPhone of the alleged shell casing, allegedly taken at the scene, but not until 11:45, an hour and a half afterwards. They had time date stamp, but what you didn't see from the prosecution was the GPS location data for those digital photos on Relly's phone line. I mean, they didn't show you, what else they didn't show you was GPS location data from Relly's iPhone to show you where Relly was on November 6, 2021. That would solve a lot of mysteries here. It's not like they couldn't have done it. GPS location data from Relly's iPhone, which they had. That would have answered all the questions. Well, what that shows you is that not only had they had the ability to do that, they in fact did it. But why just for Relly? Why not for Relly, who claims he came back and found shell casings? That would put an end to this mystery. That he wouldn't want anyone other than the police taking evidence from the scene because that could hamper and hinder an investigation. This is obviously fairly important. You wouldn't want anyone who's not law enforcement removing evidence or taking evidence from the scene, right? Answer correct. Because that could hamper and hinder your investigation. Answer, it can. Anything to tell the truth about? I don't know if that's my girlfriend. That's not, I don't know. That's either yes or no. Couldn't recognize his girlfriend when he said, oh, because she had makeup on.
Now, some people would say his girlfriend has nothing to do with this. Well, she kind of does because she could corroborate them going back to get the shell casings.
Or you could just disregard that one fact and believe the rest. But he lied to you about so many crucial things. I'm not talking about his inconsistencies. Again, we'd be here until the summer. Well, how about at a shooting range a few weeks before November 6th? You fire 9mm at a shooting range, trying to kick him off on November 6th, 2021. He said, definitely not. And I repeat, I said, definitely not? And he got all belligerent with me. He says, you heard me, definitely not. I didn't even own a firearm, he said. I only got my firearm license a year and a half later.
He said definitely not to firing a gun before.
I said, what you just told this jury was that before November 6, 2021, you didn't fire any guns because you didn't have your license. And then he said, no, unless I was at a shooting range. And I said to him, sir, I just asked you, were you at a shooting range? And you said, definitely not. And I asked you again, and you said, you heard me, definitely not. He just made stuff up as he went along. Look at this. Sometime between 2 o'clock and 2:50, that same day, immediately, he calls the prosecution and says, oh, I checked my Instagram account, and I realized I was in Los Angeles on November 19, 2021. And I realized I was at a shooting range. And what's the reason the prosecution elicited from Relly as to why he made that discovery? Well, he was going back to check his Instagram account on whether the shooting range was in Los Angeles because he wanted to correct any mistakes he made. How about the Miami property, Mr. Relly, that you invested in? I mean, last year, it was last year, sir. You invested in Miami property. You posted on your Instagram. I asked him, which property in Miami did you invest in? I don't remember which property. Why? I mean, no one invests in property doesn't remember which property. Yeah, I just made that up because I didn't want to answer any of my questions, any of your questions anymore. He literally said to you, he just lied under oath on a very important fact, like whether he had access to 9mm shell casings, because he was tired of answering my questions. I just don't lie to you. So with this evidence, ask yourselves, ladies and gentlemen, did Relly first lie to you about going to a shooting range where you have access to 9mm shell casings, and then lie to you again about having access to those 9mm shell casings here in Los Angeles? As the police found when they got there, there was no shell casings there because he had a pop gun. He had a pop gun, as unimpeached witnesses told you. And he claims that he got these shell casings from the scene an hour and whatever later, half later. And then he held them for 2 days, gave them to the police 2 days later, when his extortion defense failed. One thing's clear, the prosecution has not proven beyond reasonable doubt that Relly had access to shell casings in Los Angeles now that we know, which he lied about. The prosecution presented no evidence, zero evidence whatsoever, trying to corroborate Relly's claim that he actually found those shell casings at the scene. None.
Surprised he hasn't brought up the Dunkin' Donuts being closed at 10 and 11 p.m. in LA.
Only that the shell casings possibly, there's a word again, possibly came from an aftermarket slide for a firearm frame that could possibly have been compatible with the Glock 43. Or not possibly. I mean, literally, that was the import of that testimony. Possibly could have come from an aftermarket slide for a firearm frame that could have possibly, this is his testimony, possibly been compatible with the Glock 43 magazine.
A lot of possibly from the ballistics expert.
Imagine that. Maybe wind wiped the fingerprints off the shell case. Imagine. So now my fingerprints are on this thing. Oh, there goes my fingerprints. Are you kidding me? Wind? Wind, not the fingerprint off the shell case.
That was very performative right there. Wind blowing off fingerprints is hilarious, though.
So Relly wants you to believe his fingerprints weren't on them because he supposedly went to Dunkin' Donuts to get a bag to pick them up with. And you know that's not true. There's no Dunkin' Donuts open at 11 p.m. at night, especially during COVID.
Let's go. There it is.
He said, I went to Dunkin' Donuts at 11 o'clock at night. Got a paper bag from Dunkin' Donuts at 11 o'clock at night in Hollywood. And that's the bag I used to put the bullets in that had no fingerprints on. You determine the credibility of that statement.
He's got to finish his closing arguments tomorrow. That's crazy. All right, that's pretty much it. I mean, both sides are going at each other's throats, but I think there's some doubt here. I think it's a 50-50 though. It could be like a deadlock jury, honestly. Comment down below what you think. Hit subscribe. Love you guys. Peace out.